Skeet shooting with Fred Missildine from the Missildine School of Shooting in beautiful Sea Island, Georgia. In 1920, in Andover, Massachusetts, a group of men known as the Upland Game Hunters originated the idea of skeet shooting. The basic reason was to improve their wing shooting. And even after the hunting season was over, this group decided that they would like to shoot more often. So therefore, they organized the original Skeet Club. The idea caught on rapidly and also caught the fancy of many people in all ages, and surprisingly enough, with both sexes. The word skeet itself is an old Scandinavian word for shoot. It has now become a major sport, with its own international and state organizations spreading throughout the entire world. Its success has been due to a dedicated group who has and is guiding it carefully on to even greater popularity and prestige throughout the world. 5 people compose of an average skeet squad, each of whom shoots a round of 25 targets. Competitive events are held in all 4 gauges of the shotgun, these being the 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 28 gauge, and the 410 gauge. There are a lot of people that will shoot the 12 gauge only. However, after shooting the 12 gauge for some period of time, most people will start shooting the 20 gauge. After they have mastered these 2 guns, invariably they will try to master the 2 smaller guns, being the 28 gauge and the more evasive 410 gauge. Guns for this competitive sport must be capable of firing 2 shots, as 4 sets of doubles are included in the regulation 25 target event. The skeet field is laid out in a semicircle with 8 stations at strategic locations for shooting. 7 of the stations are positioned at equal distances of the perimeter of the semicircle, with the 8th station in the middle of the semicircle, in line with Station 1 and Station 7, which are at the outer edge of the semicircle. Facing the semicircle and on your left is what is known as a high house. Directly in front of the high house is Station 1, therefore being your starting position. This stimulates a duck coming into the blind. From this station, you call for your first target, which comes out directly over your head. After shooting this target, your second target will come from directly across the semicircle behind Station 7, which is known as the low house target, stimulating the effect of an upland game bird such as a quail or grouse getting up from cover. Targets are always thrown in the same pattern of flight, but the angle of the shot varies because the shooter changes position as the squad moves from station to station. 2 targets are shot from each station, 1 from the high house and 1 from the low house. After shooting all 8 stations, 1 at a time, you then move to Station 1, 2, 6, and 7, and then shoot doubles, which means targets are thrown simultaneously from both houses and then are shot breaking the outgoing target first and the incoming target second. If a shooter misses a target at any station, he is allowed 1 time to repeat his first miss. If the shooter breaks his first 24 targets, then he may call for an additional target from the high house as his optional shot, therefore breaking 25 targets out of 25 and being a perfect round. The National Skeet Shooting Association is a regulating body of skeet and issues all the rules governing the sport. Here we are at the famous Fred Missildine Shooting School at Sea Island, Georgia, where the annual skeet tournament held each February is just winding up. There's Fred Missildine shooting his 24th and his 25th shot for a perfect round and a perfect 100 out of 100. That is nothing unusual for the former world's professional skeet champion, winner of 28 World Skeet Championships. Fred is also considered by most to be one of the greatest instructors in the country today. Now let's go over and see if he will give us some tips on skeet shooting. Hello, Fred. Nice shooting. You make it look easy.
Thank you. Actually, it is easy. In fact, as easy as 1, 2, 3. Skeet shooting is just as simple as 1, 2, 3. 1, position. 2, gun fit. 3, concentration. In all other shooting sports, number 1 would be the fit of the gun. That is because 98% of all shots are unknown angles. In skeet shooting, where the flight of the target is known, the shooter, by taking the correct position, can overcome the disadvantage of an improperly fitted gun. But let's go back and start at the beginning. How old should one be before starting to shoot skeet? Actually, age has very little to do with shooting. In a youngster, size and the ability to assume responsibility are the controlling factors. If your boy or girl is large enough to correctly hold a gun to his shoulder, and if they can take responsibility of safely handling the gun, then they are ready to start shooting. There is no age limit for adults. I shot with Senator Joe George in the Nationals and was hard put to keep up with him, and he's in his 70s. Always remember that skeet is the one sport where being a beginner is not a handicap. You can drop into any squad, and as long as you handle the gun safely, you can shoot right along with the experts without affecting their scores. In fact, you will find that most experienced shooters are anxious to help the beginner. Now that we have you shooting, let's talk about the gun. The most popular guns for skeet shooting are the automatic, the pump, and the over and under, in that order. I suggest that all beginners start with a 20-gauge automatic. I suggest an automatic because it absorbs most of the recoil, and when it comes time to shoot the doubles, it gives the shooter one less thing to think about. I use a 20-gauge because it throws a large enough pattern so that the beginner is sure to get a large percentage of hits, thereby building up his confidence. This makes him want to try again. Now let's talk a little about the fit of the gun. This is of utmost importance. If there's no one around who knows how to correctly fit the gun to the shooter, I suggest that you try several guns belonging to the local club members, and when you find one that you can shoot, copy the stock. Most factory guns will come with the following dimensions: 14-inch pull, 2 1/2 inches drop at the heel, and 1 1/2 inch drop at the comb. This will fit 75% of the shooters. The other 25% will need special stocks. To correctly check the fit of your gun, do the following. Let the gun rest in the crook of your arm, pointed toward the ceiling. You should now be able to reach the trigger with the first joint of your trigger finger. If you have to stretch the finger, then the stock is too long and should be shortened. If the finger goes well through the guard, allowing you to pull with the second joint, then the stock is too short and should be lengthened. When the gun is mounted correctly, there should be between 1 1/2 inches between the nose and the back of the thumb. Now with your eyes closed, mount the gun to your shoulder, just as though you were shooting a target. Open your eyes. You should be looking right down the rib or barrel. If you cannot see the front sight, then the stock has too much drop and should be raised. If you see the entire barrel, like looking up a hill or staircase, then the stock is too straight and should be dropped. Having a gun that fits really takes the work out of shooting. So spend your money on the stock and not on the barrel or engraving. All skeet guns should be skeet choked or improved cylinder. I recommend the 26-inch barrels, as they are easy to swing and a lot faster in picking up the bird. Unless the beginner is extremely gun shy, I suggest that he stay away from the 410-gauge gun. It's too hard to control, and it just tears down the beginner's confidence. Stay away from light guns. They feel good, but they're too easy to overswing. They also have more recoil and a slightly heavier gun. Always remember, you can shoot a gun that is too short, but you can never shoot one that is too long. I would not recommend cutting the stock shorter than 13 inches, even for a junior. A stock shorter than this will concentrate the recoil in too small an area, thereby giving the beginner a sore shoulder. As soon as possible, have an expert check the fit of your gun. Then do what he says. Don't ask for his advice and not take it. Now that we have a gun, let's talk about shooting it. If you're a beginner or starting a beginner, you should start from Station 7, shooting the outgoing target. This target requires a minimum of movement and also provides ample time for the shooter to get on it. Here, too, it is easy for the instructor to see just where the student is shooting. The correct position will be taken up a little later. For the time being, do the following. Take a stance on the station facing the target crossing point, just as if you were walking. Start with the left foot forward and be sure that the right foot is not behind the left. It should be about 1 foot out to the side. Now lean slightly forward. Bend the left knee and place most of the weight on the left foot. Bend forward at the waist and bring the stock of the gun up to the face, making sure it is well into the shoulder and it is not on the bicep, or it will cause a bruise. Now raise the gun with the left arm. Most beginners make the mistake of trying to raise the gun by leaning back at the waist. This results in shooting over the target and also excess recoil. If you're a beginner or teaching a beginner, concentrate on position and see that the gun is correctly held. Forget the target. If you hit 1 or 2 targets, that's excellent. Concentrate on your stance and gun position. The sooner you master that, the sooner you will break more targets. Now that you're standing right, holding the gun correctly, call for a low bird. Give a good sharp call, such as pull. This helps the puller and also gives you confidence. Watch the end of the barrel and point it at the target. Do not try to aim or sight down the barrel. Watch the end of the barrel in relation to the target, just as if you were pointing your finger. Do not look away when you pull the trigger. Keep your cheek on the stock and continue to look at the target as you shoot. Remember, if you hit 2 or 3 targets, that's good. As soon as you're hitting this target well, try a few from the high house across the way. Do not be discouraged if you fail to hit this target. It's a little harder shot as it is moving from left to right. As long as you shoot, you will have more trouble with birds moving from left to right than those moving from right to left, unless you're left-handed. This is due to the fact that the left arm is always trying to stop the swing from left to right, whereas from right to left, it is helping the swing. More will be said about this later. Now leave the Station 7 and move over to Station 1. Try some targets from the low house across the way. Be sure you continue to concentrate on position and getting the gun in the correct place on your shoulder, and not just trying to hit the target. After hitting a few birds from this stand, move to Station 2 and try the same slow incoming target. Here you should face slightly more to the left to allow for follow-through. If you do well on this one, try a few from Station 3. Do not expect to hit too many on this stand, for it's quite a bit different from Position 2. The lead is about 3 times as much. Now move back to Station 7 and try the incomer or high house target. If you do well on this target, move over and try the same bird from Station 6. By now you have probably noticed that we have given you only the slow incoming targets. This gives you plenty of time to get on the target and helps you keep the gun in the correct place on your shoulder. A beginner should stay away from the fast outgoing targets, such as high house 2 and 3, until he has become used to the gun and there is little danger of it slipping off his shoulder and bruising his arm. Since there is a great possibility that he will miss most of these targets, it will only tear down his confidence and discourage him. If it is necessary for you to drop into a squad to practice, I recommend that you shoot the following. Station 1, shoot the high and the low house. Station 2, shoot only 2 low houses. Station 3, 2 low houses. Station 4, skip. Station 5, skip. Station 6, 2 high houses. Station 7, a high and a low house. Station 8, skip. Doubles. Repeat as singles unless you have had practice at shooting doubles. Once you have mastered these shots and can hit them with a certain amount of regularity, then and only then should you turn your attention to the fast outgoing targets. Above all, do not get discouraged. Remember, all of the shooters that you're watching and admiring had to go through the same slow process to get where they are today. Now that you have the correct position, let's check your stance. The left leg should be slightly forward unless you are left-handed, just as if you were taking a step. The right foot should be about 10 or 12 inches to the right, never behind the left foot. Lean slightly forward, putting your weight on the ball of your left foot. The left leg should be bent a little at the knee. Never bend the right leg. It should always remain locked in position. This prevents rolling with the shot or swing. It also helps to keep the shooter from squatting. It gives the shooter an added push that is needed on high house 2 and low house 6 targets. You should lean slightly forward at the waist on all shots. It is possible to have the feet and the legs in the above described position and still lean backwards at the waist. This is a very common fault with a beginner. This causes a shooter to shoot over the target and feel the recoil a great deal more than if he leans forward. Now, bring the stock up to your shoulder, being sure that it is well in and not out on the bicep where it will cause a bruise. It should be high enough for you to rest your cheek on the comb without ducking your head too far. 1/2 inch below the top of the shoulder should be just about correct. A good rule to remember is never to duck your head down to the gun. Always bring the gun up to your head. This is probably the most common error beginners and field shooters make. Stopping the gun too low on the shoulder will cause the shooter to shoot over the target. The relationship between the target and the barrel looks correct, but the shot charge always goes over the target. The right hand should be firm, for it holds and controls the gun. The left hand should not be too far out on the forearm. Keep the left arm slightly bent so that the gun can be pushed slightly away from the shoulder as it is dropped to the ready position. The left arm should never be straight or out stiff, for this will cause binding on the left to right shots. However, I believe the best way to explain skeet shooting is on the skeet field, so let's move out there. You are now on Station 1. The first target you must shoot is High House 1. It is most important that you remember the instructions I have given you regarding the proper stance at each station. Assume your correct position, making sure that you are facing the target crossing point. Always remember that a legal target can pass either 1 1/2 feet to the left or right of this point. So therefore, your attention and concentration must be on watching for the target at all times. First, look at your feet to see if they're in the correct position, making sure that your weight is on the left leg with the knee slightly bent. Keep the right foot back 8 to 10 inches and to the right of the left foot. Lean slightly forward at the waist, therefore allowing your body and arms to move freely with the gun. Never lean back. Bring the gun up to your shoulder, placing it in the pocket between your shoulder bone and collarbone, not on the bicep. The gun must always be brought up to the face, not the face down to the gun. Then raise the gun with the left arm up to the flight line of the target, approximately 20 feet from the house. Keep your eyes focused over the end of the barrel, on the spot where the target will be in the flight line. Give a good sharp call, but most important of all, be ready and watch for the target. When the target appears in front of the gun, pull the trigger, shooting at the bottom of the target. Make sure that you follow through after you have pulled the trigger. Do not look up, as this is a reason why most people miss this target. Remember, you can always catch the target, but you can never get ahead and wait for it. The tip of the muzzle and your eyes must go together. If they're not, the gun shoots one place while your eyes are focused at another. This target should always be broken before it reaches the target crossing point. There are many things to check for if you have missed the target. First, check your position to see if you're standing properly. Second, to see if the muzzle of the gun was too high or too low, not being in the flight line of the target when you call pull. Many shooters make the mistake of looking up at the target when they call pull, not at the end of the muzzle and the target together. I repeat again, your eyes on the tip of the muzzle at all times. These two things must go together. Your second target is Station 1, Low House. The position of your feet remain the same for Station 1, Low House as it was for Station 1, High House. Place the gun in the correct position to your head and shoulders, dry pointing the gun halfway between the target crossing point and the high house in the flight line. Keep the right leg straight with your weight on the left leg and the knee slightly bent. Swing back along the flight line of the target to within 6 feet of the house and just below the target opening. Holding below the opening allows you to see the target as it emerges. Never move the gun until you after you see the target. Give a good sharp call, moving the gun with the left arm and shoulder so that you do not raise the gun by rocking back. Follow the target with your eyes glued to the end of the muzzle so as to make sure that you do not lift your head from the stock. If you do, you will be looking at one point and shooting at another. When the target is past the target crossing point, pull ahead of the target 1 foot, pull the trigger, and most important of all, make sure that after you have pulled the trigger, you follow through with your swing. Always stay just below this target and do not shoot it too fast. It is most important not to overlead this target or stop your gun after you have pulled the trigger. Remember that in the time it takes the shooter to pull the trigger, the target will move approximately 3 feet. So therefore, if you pull the trigger and stop, you will be shooting behind the target. Now we will move to Station 2, High House. At Station 2, as on all stations, when you're shooting single targets, you shoot the high house target first. Here again, I want to remind you to make sure that your feet are in the proper position, facing the target crossing point, with your right foot back 8 to 10 inches to the right of your left foot, with your knee slightly bent so you're leaning forward at the waist. Place the gun to your shoulder with your head on the stock and your eyes on the end of the muzzle. Dry point the gun over the target crossing point and in the flight line of the target. Move the gun back along the flight line until you are at right angles with the high house. Make sure the gun muzzle is just below the flight line of the target so that it is easy for you to see the target when it emerges from the house. Do not look back at the house, but directly over the end of the muzzle at the flight line of the target. Again, I repeat, give a good sharp call for each and every target, as this ensures a good pull and gives you confidence in breaking the target. Do not move your gun until you see the target. Once you see the target, catch it, pass it, see daylight, and pull the trigger, making sure that you follow through after you have pulled the trigger. The target should be broken before it reaches a target crossing point. An easy way to break this target is by moving the gun with a quick push of the left arm and a downward push on the right leg. This makes it easier for you to catch the target. Most beginners will shoot behind this target as they do not swing fast enough. This shot is what I basically call a chop shot. If you are constantly missing this target, there are many things to check for. Review the instructions that I have just given you, one by one, to see if you have used this precise manner to shoot this target. Some experienced shooters will overlead this target or hold the muzzle of the gun too high and shoot above it. Our fourth target is Station 2, Low House. Your stance for shooting Low House 2 must be the same as on all stations, with your weight on your left leg, keeping your right leg straight, the body slightly bent at the waist. However, the position of your body must be changed. Turn and face halfway between the high house and the target crossing point. Dry point your gun just below the flight line of the target at this point, and then follow the flight line back to within 3 feet to the left of the target opening. Be sure that the muzzle of your gun is below the target opening so that you can see the target immediately. Give a good sharp call, keeping your head on the stock and your eyes on the muzzle of the gun. Make sure that you do not move the gun until you have seen the target. Swing with the target, and after it has passed the target crossing point, move 2 feet ahead, pull the trigger, and make sure you follow through. Do not raise your head or eyes when shooting this target. The target should be broken halfway between Station 1 and the target crossing point. Many shooters will shoot this target too quick or hold their gun above the flight line of the target, therefore shooting over and behind the target. Remember, here you must have a 2-foot lead and make sure that you follow through with your swing. Your next shot is High House 3. Your position for shooting High House 3 is approximately the same as High House 2. Turn slightly to the right so that you face halfway between the target crossing point and Station 8. Move the gun back just below the flight line until you're within 10 feet to the right of the high house opening. This is slightly more than a right angle that you used on Station 2 High House. Unlike Station 2, which is a chop shot, this is a swing shot. When you've moved back to the proper position, give a good sharp call, making sure you do not move until you see the target. Once you see the target, start swinging. Catch it, pass it, See approximately 3 feet of daylight. Pull the trigger and make sure that you follow through. The basic reason for missing this target is that you are apt to hold the gun too far in front of the house, anticipating the target, therefore stopping your swing and shooting behind the target. So do not hold your gun too far in front of the house, and do not shoot too quickly. I repeat, this target is a swing shot where you have time to see your lead. Make sure you have a 3-foot lead and break the target before it reaches the target crossing point. Your sixth shot is Station 3, Low House. Change your position to shoot Low House 3 by facing slightly more to the left. Assume your correct stance, with your weight on your left leg, right leg straight, your body slightly bent forward at the waist. Raise your gun to your shoulder and head. Dry pointing just below the flight line of the target, between the high house and the target crossing point. Move smoothly back to within 3 feet to the left of the target opening. You must remember to keep your eyes focused on the end of the barrel and make sure that the barrel is just below the target opening so that you can see the target clearly. Give a sharp call, making sure that you do not move until you see the target. After you see the target, swing with it, catch it before it reaches the target crossing point. Then pull 3 1/2 feet ahead, pulling the trigger and making sure that you do not stop the gun, but follow through. This target should be broken halfway between the target crossing point and the high house. If the position of your body is facing too much toward the low house, you will find that after you have your 3-foot lead, you will stop your swing due to the fact that your body cannot go any farther. Make sure your position is halfway between the high house and the target crossing point. Most shooters who miss this target are afraid to shoot 3 feet in front of the target, which is an absolute necessity. Never underestimate your lead. It is almost impossible to overlead this target. Many shooters will follow this target with their eyes instead of having their eyes and the muzzle of the gun together. I repeat, keep your eyes glued to the end of the gun and the target at all times. Your next target is in the center of the field and is known as Station 4, High House. Your position for shooting High House 4 is with your body facing 3 feet to the right of the target crossing point. I cannot express to you enough the importance of, particularly on this station, of keeping the weight on the left leg, the right leg straight, 8 to 10 inches to the right of the left leg, the body bent forward at the waist. This is a good time to recheck your stance. It is also a good time to make sure that you're holding the gun in the pocket between the collarbone and the shoulder bone, with the head down on the stock and the eyes focused on the muzzle of the gun. Dry point your gun 3 feet to the right of the target crossing point and slightly below the flight line of the target. Move your gun back to a point 3 feet to the right of the target opening. Make sure you do not look at the target opening, but at the flight line of the target over the muzzle of the gun. Give a good sharp call, not moving the gun until you see the target. Here you must swing a little faster, catching the bird, passing it, in order to obtain a 4-foot lead at the target crossing point, pulling the trigger and making sure that you follow through. This target should be broken directly over the target crossing point. Do not try shooting it any faster. If you hold the gun too far in front of the trap house, you will have a tendency to get too far in front of the target, waiting for it to catch up, and therefore your gun will not be moving. Make sure the gun is swinging after you pull the trigger. This is most important. Station 4, Low House. Basically, shooting Low House 4 is the same as High House 4, with one exception, and that being that you're facing 3 feet to the left of the target crossing point instead of 3 feet to the right of the target crossing point. Dry point your gun just below the flight line of the target. Then move smoothly back to within 3 feet of the target opening, making sure that your gun muzzle is below the flight line of the target. With your eyes glued over the end of the barrel, give a sharp call, making sure that you do not move the gun until you have seen the target. Swing rapidly, obtaining a 4-foot lead by the time you reach the target crossing point. Pull the trigger and follow through. As in Station 1, Low House, swing the gun with the left arm and the shoulder, not rocking back on the right foot. If you do, you will shoot over this target. The main reason most shooters miss this target is because they do not increase the speed of their swing, or they are holding the muzzle of their gun too high above the trap opening. Some shooters will face the trap house too much and therefore stop their swing at the target crossing point instead of beyond. Do not rock back with your swing. Make sure you keep under the target at all times. Station 5, High House. Your proper stance for shooting High House 5 is to face halfway between the target crossing point and the low house. Make sure that your stance is correct. Before dry pointing, just before the light flight line of the target, move the gun back to within 3 feet of the target opening. Give a good sharp call, making sure that you're looking for the target over the muzzle of the gun, not at the target opening. Once you see the target, catch it before it reaches the target crossing point. Pull 3 feet ahead, pull the trigger, and make sure you follow through. Do not roll with your right shoulder. This causes you to shoot over and behind. If you get too far ahead of this target, you will have a tendency to stop and wait for it to catch up. Therefore, your gun is not swinging when you pull the trigger, causing you to shoot behind the target. Do not ride this target too far. Get your lead at the target crossing point, pull the trigger, and make sure you keep swinging with your left arm and shoulder, pivoting on your left knee. Do not underestimate this target. It is one of the most missed targets by experienced shooters, simply because the shooter is not concentrating as much as he should, or he lacks confidence, therefore affecting his concentration. This target should always be broken halfway between the target crossing point and the low house. Station 5, Low House. Your position for Low House 5 is facing halfway between the target crossing point and Station 8. Move the muzzle of the gun just below the flight line of the target, stopping 10 feet to the left of the target opening. Be sure the muzzle of the gun is below the trap opening so that you can see the target easier when it emerges from the trap house. Always remember, with this shot, you must swing faster than you do on other stations because the distance between where you see the bird and must shoot it is a lot shorter. Therefore, it is necessary to pick up the bird, speed up your swing, catch it, obtain a 1-foot lead, and shoot it before it reaches the target crossing point. The lead here is 2 feet. However, your swing is so fast that the apparent lead of 1 foot will result in a lead of 2 feet. Do not straighten up with your swing. Push into this shot as you swing. Do not get out in front of this target and wait for it. Control your swing so that you move with the target, and then pull ahead of it at the same time you are pulling the trigger. Make sure your weight is on your left foot, knee slightly bent, and that you're not facing toward the house too much, as this will not only stop your swing, but also cause you to swing with the arms instead of the body. Now let's move to Station 6, High House. High House 6 is a repetition of High House 5, except that you have more time in which to make the shot. The correct position is to face halfway between the target crossing point and the low house. Follow the line of flight back to within 3 feet of the target opening. Keep the muzzle of the gun just below the opening, making sure you do not move until you see the target. This target is constantly missed due to the fact that shooters move the gun before they see the target or hold too far out in front of the target opening, therefore waiting for the target to catch up and stopping the gun. Give a good sharp call. When you see the target, move with it, catch it before it reaches the target crossing point, obtain a 2-foot lead, pull the trigger, keeping your weight on your left foot with the knee slightly bent, and follow through. As on High House 5, most shooters miss this target because they have a tendency to roll back on the heel of their right foot, therefore shooting over the target. Keep the right leg straight at all times. This target should be broken halfway between Station 8 and the low house. Do not shoot this target too quick. Station 6, Low House. Low House 6 is like High House 2. It is a chop shot, not a slow swing shot. Take your position facing the target crossing point. Move the gun back along the flight line until you are at a right angle with the low house, holding the muzzle just below the flight line of the target. Do not look at the trap house opening. Keep your eyes on the muzzle of the gun and the flight line of the target. Give a good sharp call. Be ready to swing fast so as to get in front of the target as quickly as possible. As soon as you see daylight between the muzzle of the gun and the target, pull the trigger and follow through. As on High House 2, start the swing by pulling with the left arm and pushing down on the right leg. Do not straighten up with your swing. Lean into your shot. The main reason that most shooters miss this target is because they stop their gun once they have pulled the trigger, or they rock back on their right heel, therefore causing the muzzle to rise above the flight line of the target, shooting over the bird. Remember, do not lift the head or overlead this target. It is a chop shot, not a swing shot. Station 7, High House. For this shot, take a position facing the target crossing point, with the muzzle of the gun halfway between the low house and the target crossing point. Swing back along the flight line of the target, stopping the muzzle 3 feet to the right of the target opening and slightly below so that you may see the target easier as it emerges from the house. Do not move until you see this target. Most beginners constantly miss this target because they have their eyes on the target opening instead of over the muzzle of the gun, causing them to move too quickly. Therefore, getting too far in front of the target, having to stop and wait for the target to catch up. When you do this, your gun is not swinging, so you shoot behind the target. Remember, it takes slightly more than 65 1/100ths of a second to pull the trigger and the shot charge to reach the target. In this time, the target will move 4 feet. If you stop your swing when you pull the trigger, you will shoot behind the target. At all times, remember, the most important thing on this shot is to keep your eyes on the muzzle of the gun and the target, with your head on the stock. Never look up with your eyes, as the gun will be shooting in one direction, while your eyes are looking at another. Do not shoot too soon. This target should be broken halfway between the target crossing point and the low house. Station 7, Low House. Your position on this shot is the same as the High House 7. Raise the muzzle of the gun up to the flight line of the target, with your eyes on the muzzle and just beyond the target crossing point. Give a good sharp call. Look for the target over the muzzle of the gun, and as soon as you see it, pull the trigger, making sure that your head remains on the stock. Do not look away when you pull the trigger. One of the main reasons for missing this target, in particular, is due to the fact that most shooters will raise their head to see the target. Therefore, again reminding you that if your head is not on the stock and your eyes on the muzzle, you're looking in one place and shooting in another. This target should always be broken before it reaches the target crossing point. However, do not shoot this target too quickly. Be alert. Remember, a straightaway target is one of the most deceiving shots in the game. Now let's move out to Station 8. The correct position for High House is facing halfway between the High House and the target crossing point. Be sure the right foot is 8 to 10 inches to the right of the left foot, not directly behind the left foot, as this will cause you to roll with this shot instead of making the sure swing which is necessary. Dry point halfway between the High House and the target crossing point, following the flight line back to the target opening, stopping just below the opening. Be sure you watch the muzzle of the gun and the target. Give a good sharp call. Then, by pushing with the left arm, catch the target, blot it out, pull the trigger, and keep swinging. You will find in time to come this target to be one of the easiest targets to break. Most experienced shooters miss this target due to 3 reasons: overconfidence, carelessness, or lack of concentration. Make sure you concentrate on each and every target and that your head remains on the gun stock at all times. Do not move until you see the target. Station 8, Low House. As on High House 8, take a position facing halfway between the low house and the target crossing point. Dry point the gun at the flight line of the target. Move back to a point just to the left and below the target opening. Give a good sharp call, moving the gun with the left arm as you did on High House 8. Catch the target, black it out, pull the trigger, and follow through. Here again, as on High House 8, you do not lift your head from the stock of the gun. make sure your eyes are directly on the muzzle of the gun. With your right leg straight and the weight of the left foot, with the knee slightly bent, make sure that you concentrate on this target when you call for it. Here again, overconfidence and a lack of concentration is the main reason for missing this target. Now let's move back to Station 1 and shoot the doubles. Station 1 doubles. On Station 1 doubles, assume the same stance and position as was on Station 1 high house single. You will now load 2 shells and proceed to shoot your high house target first, in the same manner as you shot high house 1 singles. Remember, you have plenty of time to break both of these targets. So therefore, do not shoot the high house too quickly. Take your time. Make sure that you break the high house target, concentrating on one target at a time. You will find, after you have broken the high house, that you have sufficient time to catch the low house. Shoot directly at it. The reason why you can shoot directly at the low house one on doubles is because your gun is swinging faster at the time you pull the trigger. The most important thing to remember after you have broken high house one is not to raise your head from the stock of the gun in shooting low house one. Most experienced shooters will miss high house one doubles because they forget to follow through on this target. Therefore, concentration is a must. Shoot high house one as if it were high house one single, following through. Shoot it before it reaches the target crossing point. Remember, not too fast. Then pick up the low house one with your head glued to the stock of the gun and your eyes on the muzzle. Shoot at the leading edge of the incoming target. Do not swing back too fast on the low house target. Remember, you can always catch up, but you can never get ahead of the target and wait for it. Station 2 doubles. For Station 2 doubles, you assume the same position and stance as high house 2 singles, moving the muzzle of the gun back to a right angle with the high house. Be ready, then give a good sharp call. Make sure you do not move the gun until you see the target. Shoot the high house target in the same manner as you shot high house 2 singles. Here again you have plenty of time to shoot the low house target. So therefore, make sure you follow through with your swing on the high house target before picking up the low house target. Once your eyes and the muzzle of the gun are focused on the leading edge of the low house target, pull the trigger, making sure you follow through. Shooting doubles is quite easy, provided that you concentrate on breaking your first target, because on your second target, you are swinging the gun as you should. Do not shoot the high house target too fast, or you will find you will be waiting in front for the low house target, therefore stopping your gun. Start your swing by pushing down on the right leg and forward with the left arm. Station 6 doubles. Take the same stance and position as if shooting low house 6. Concentrate on the low house target and remember that it is shot in the same manner as low house 6 singles. This target should be broken before it reaches the target crossing point. Remember, this is a chop shot, not a swing shot. Once you have shot the low house target, pick up the high house target and shoot at the leading edge, making sure that you follow through. There are several reasons for experienced shooters to miss this target. Because of overconfidence, they will walk away from the station before they have pulled the trigger on the second shot. The other reason is that they get too far ahead of the incoming target, stop and wait on it, therefore shooting behind it. Station 7 doubles. Your position and stance for Station 7 doubles is the same as low house 7 singles. Be sure the gun is mounted correctly in the shoulder pocket. This is between the collarbone and shoulder bone, not on the bicep. Focus the eyes at a point out and over the target crossing point, with the eyes directly over the muzzle of the gun. Once you see the target, shoot right at it. Do not move on the second shot until it crosses the muzzle of the gun. Catch it, pass it, pull the trigger, and follow through. Experienced shooters miss this target, mainly because they either shoot the first target too fast, are not ready when they call for the target, stop swinging on the second target, But most important of all, their eyes are not focused on the end of the gun barrel and the target, due to the fact that they have raised their head from the stock of the gun. Once you have broken all of the targets that I've just described to you, you have one shell left, which is called your option shot. This is your 25th shot, which completes a round of skeet and should always be taken from the high house on Station 7. The preference of this target over the low house target is because here the shooter has time to follow the target correctly. Experienced shooters miss this target mainly because of a lack of concentration and overconfidence. Now that you've just finished your first round of skeet, you're probably saying to yourself, "This is simple. I bet I will be breaking 25 by the end of the week." Good for you. This is what it takes, positive thinking. However, do not get overconfident. If you do, the letdown when you shoot a low score will be terrific. Perhaps we should review a few things that you should remember. First is safety. Always remember, keep the breech open. Do not load until you're on the stand, and point the gun toward the target crossing point when you load. Second, check your positions. Position of your feet, position of the stock on your shoulder, position of your left hand on forearm, the position of your eyes looking over the end of the barrel at the flight line of the target. As soon as possible, have an expert check your gun to see that it fits you. This makes shooting a lot easier. Stay away from the 12-gauge gun until you have mastered the smaller 20-gauge. Do not shoot too much. 4 rounds a day, once or twice a week, is enough for a beginner. A good instructor is invaluable, especially when you first start. 2 days with a good instructor, such as can be found at the Missildine Shooting School, is worth 100 rounds of practice. Above all, do not be discouraged. Remember, good shooters are made, not born. Every AA shooter has gone through the same slow process of learning the game, just as you are doing now. For the time being, forget your score. Concentrate on your position, stance, and gun handling, and you will find that your score will take care of itself. Remember, it is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Position, gun fit, and concentration. Give a good sharp call, keep it fun, and good shooting.